thing. But I would say, I'm going to say 90 to 95% of everyone listening, it's you're stopping yourself. And it's you versus you. And we have to break that. We have to break that psychology. We have to break those limiting beliefs because this is our video game. It's
Brian May is from New York. He was building a successful real estate brokerage business when he met the love of his life. They married and had a child, and in an unexpected accident, she died. How does a young man navigate something like this? Where might he find wisdom and meaning in life? And how does he go forward, raising his son? This is a deep and moving conversation about finding meaning and wisdom in life, even when it doesn't seem to be going your way. And it's a conversation about paying it forward to help others as we all strive for deeper understanding and direction. Brian, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We've spoken a couple times, so I appreciate you, and I appreciate the show that you're doing. My name is Brian May. I grew up in New York. I grew up on Long Island. I had a pretty average middle class upbringing. I had a great upbringing. My parents were fantastic. I had a lot of friends that I'm still friends with to this day, and I'm still on a group chat with my buddies. Even as we're speaking right now, I'm sure I'm getting texts from them. And I got heavily into real estate. I bought my first house at 21, and I went to a school called Hofstra, which is pretty famous in New York and pretty not famous outside of New York. And I started a brokerage, a real estate brokerage, and did excellent. We hit it very good with all the hipsters moving into Brooklyn, and we had a great brokerage going on over there. And I was really looking for a wife. I was really looking for a serious girlfriend, something to take to the next level. And I was living in the city at the time, New York City at the time, and I was dating a lot. I actually was dating with like the purpose of finding someone. So it wasn't like a hookup culture. It was more like almost like an interview, if you will. I know that sounds so unsexy, but it was almost like really trying to find the right one. And it's interesting. We had this crazy situation that happened in Brooklyn where our office, one of the girls that were working there, who actually was very nice, it was very strange. It turned out that she was fraudulently writing checks. She was basically taking the checks that I was giving her, and she was turning the 5s into 8s, and she was actually scrolling over the checks and making them a higher value amount. And it was something that I would have probably figured it out eventually, but it was so here and there, it wasn't so obvious. And one of the other girls, who I'm still friends with to this day, she basically told me something doesn't make sense. She thinks she heard something. And so I basically did some research. I did find a few checks. And then it turned out that the girl that was in the front of the office, she wasn't involved with it. She didn't do anything, but she knew about it. And so I had to fire those two girls in one spot. And I had been using a service out of Crown Heights, which is more of a religious Jewish area, and to get some people working, and we've had success with them. So I called her up at 10 o'clock at night, and basically I was like, listen, I just had to fire two girls. I really need someone ASAP. So she calls me the next day and she says, listen, this girl just moved back from Florida. I think she's going to be perfect for you guys. She really is looking for a job. And so she started working, and that was Deborah, who became my wife. And I wouldn't say it was like a movie love at first sight, but it was definitely very fast. Over 30 days, we really just kindled this thing together, and it was just a very natural magnetism. You know, we really bonded over music because she was 10 years younger than me. I'm born in 80. She was born in 90, and she liked classic rock. So it was a very cool mix of rock and roll and some EDM stuff. And we got along great. And so it was funny because I was like on all these apps trying to meet the woman of my
Mhm.
dreams. And meanwhile, she just walked in the door of my office.
It was
And
meant to
it
be.
was meant to be. And we ended up having a son. And it wasn't as easy as you thought. You know, it's funny because a lot of people say that where, oh, you go through your early life not wanting to make sure that the other person doesn't get pregnant, right? When you're dating and things like that. And then you get married, and then sometimes it's not as easy as you think. And so we did have some issues. Um, and it's interesting because we ended up going through the IVF process. We ended up having 9 embryos, 5 boys and 4 girls. And we ended up not having to use any of them. She had a fibroid, and when they removed the fibroid, she got pregnant naturally, right? Like weeks before we were going to do the actual IVF thing.
Mhm.
And so that was pretty interesting to have 9 embryos. It was very shocking, I guess. And we moved back to Long Island. My parents had moved to Florida full time. And so when we were in Long Island, we were living there, nice, happy family. It was snowing. Max was very young. Max was about 1 year old. And that was when COVID happened. And, we went through a serious tragedy, and we lost Deborah. I lost my wife. And it was one of these things that just happened out of nowhere. And, not a moment goes by that I don't think about her. I have pictures up over there and pictures up all over the place. And my son and I, we moved to Florida, and we started rebuilding, and we're still in the process of rebuilding, really. I mean, it's now, as of next month, May 13th is going to be 4 years.
That's not that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why Florida?
Why Florida? So it's crazy. So we were planning on moving to Florida. So we were actually in the process of buying a house, and we sold our house in New York. She passed away, and I didn't buy the house in Florida. And so we ended up moving here because my parents are here and her family is here. Not all of, my brother still lives in Jersey and her father still lives in New York, but I would say a majority of the family lives here now. So it's crazy.
What are you doing in Florida?
So I do real estate. I
Mhm.
still own property in Brooklyn. I still own property in Maryland, and I do a lot of business consulting. And because of all these things that have happened with losing Dev, and then a year ago I lost my mother, um, I really wanted to take the business consulting that I'm already doing and all the business experience and move it into spirituality, because I've just found that spiritual people need more business and business people need more spirituality. And I felt that I could act as a bridge between the two, because I think that a lot of business people, they like their numbers and they like things, and they don't really like to be too woo woo. And I think there's a famous quote that says, even atheists believe in God when they're in the foxhole.
Yeah.
And so, I think that when stuff hits the fan, you start talking, and then you start hoping that someone is listening on the other side.
How do you define spirituality?
I define it as that life is a mirror. I define it as it's you versus you. And there's a lot of things going on, right? So there's honestly two ways I define it. There's the you versus you, which is like what's going on over here,
Mhm.
what's going on in your heart. Everything around you you're seeing, you created, right? Like this is something that you created. Now, if you're older, you really created it because you worked, you paid money, and this is actually your creation. If you're younger, you still created it, but in a different way. And then when you go in your head, just for example, meditation, and you just sit there and you close your eyes and you just lie there and you hear things, right? We call that thinking, and we call that ideas. And it's fascinating why do we grab onto certain ideas way more than others? And I also find it fascinating that as humans, we tend to grasp on negative ideas more than positive ideas.
Absolutely.
So it's like if I tell someone, and I'm just trying to make it very obvious, if I tell someone, if someone says to someone, you're really ugly, and then the next day someone says, you're the most amazing person I've ever met, which one do you think they're going to think about?
Oh, of course, the ugly one.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, I think that what happens is something in us, probably because of childhood, probably because we adopted it, we think it's true. And so now maybe we don't think it's 100% true, but maybe we think it's 5% true. And so we take that as kind of like cognitive bias. We take that as kind of like, oh, well, they said it, so it must be true. And we ignore everything else. And so I think a lot of it is just getting back to that love of yourself, because it's so important these days. And, when you get triggered, which is a very popular word that sometimes I like and sometimes I don't, but when you feel an emotional rise, it's because you in some way believe it.
Hmm.
And I could prove it. If I said you have really ugly blue hair, you're not going to get a rise. You're not going
Yeah.
to be upset. And if I say something that is something that you think is true, you are going to get upset. And that's why I think we want to work on those things, those triggers, right? Like, because it's a lot about acceptance. And
Well,
I
and
think,
it's about examining your belief system and deciding where they come from and what is true for you or not. And do you accept this belief? Because maybe it's been handed down to you, and I don't have blue hair.
right, right. And listen, what could happen also is we could see some stuff in our family members.
Yeah.
Mutations of family is crazy. So even if someone says something or we think something and we could place it on a family, it could be like a generational thing. And we have the opportunity to break those things. We have the opportunity to really make this world whatever we want it to be. This is a video game. This is a form of a simulation, and we do have the ability to make it whatever we want. And it's not going to be so simple because we have all these things that we've adopted along the way, whichever way we adopted it. And we have to. I personally believe that we have to constantly remind ourselves, and we have to stick with good people, and we have to really clear out the negative thoughts in our head. And some people use hypnosis, and I love hypnosis. Some people use NLP. Some people just use self-love. I mean, there's so many spiritual modalities out there. And I think that the only thing that I have found, because I've gone through the spiritual modality gauntlet after losing Dev, is I don't think there's one thing that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think that it's like a pizza pie, and I think that you have to see what's out there, because one thing that I've really come to terms with is when it comes to spirituality, action has to be applied.
Hmm.
And so, hypnosis is going to work on an NBA basketball player because he's in action. Um, there are breath work is going to work if you have a plan and you're doing something. Manifestation will work, manifesting things. But what I can promise you is if you sit on your couch and you try to manifest a six pack, it's not going to work. So I think a lot of the people on YouTube, I'm not going to say they're taking advantage, but I am saying that they're making it way easier than it really is. And they're making people think that, oh, you just have to visualize and have happy thoughts and everything's going to work out. Meanwhile, they're making 50 hours of content a week. They're editing. They're up all night. They have a crazy studio going on. They have editors. They have all these things, but they're telling you not to do anything.
Yeah. I think part of it, part of creating the life you want, is to envision it and feel it, and then you move towards it.
Yeah.
And you move towards it in an uneven way. And sometimes different opportunities come up that might make you reassess where you're going. So it is not linear. And I think a lot of it has to do with being very present, very aware, and very internally grounded so that if something comes up that's out of left field, you consider it appropriately for what you think you want out of your life, because that might be changing.
Definitely. I agree. It's the hardest part is like what you were saying is about staying in that vibe,
Yeah.
staying in that energy. And you know what? We do have bumps in the road, right?
Oh,
And
big time.
so, I mean, if you're a human, I would say you have multiple bumps in the road a day. And and I think that younger people, meaning teenagers, and maybe even early 20-year-olds, I think that they don't realize that that's normal.
I agree with you.
And
Well, we
so I
we were
think,
talking about this before, that everyone thinks it's an Instagram perfect world. It is
yeah.
not.
Oh my God, totally. And you know what? I do give some credit, and I don't know a lot of these younger TikTok and YouTube people, but I do see some people out there like really having bad days on camera, right?
Mhm.
So I think that there are people out there that are trying to do it. Now, I don't know if that's real or that's an act, because I feel like everyone is an actor these days. But I would hope that some of it is real, right? But I think that for the most part, your friends, your family members, the people you look up to, they're not going to be posting things like that. Maybe Britney Spears is the only exception, right? She posts some wacky stuff. Um, but I think that we live in a very manicured world where everyone wants to look so good all the time. I was just out in Miami and I went to like a very fancy restaurant that had a nightclub in the back. A friend of mine took me there. And I'm looking around and I told her, I said, I have never seen so many beautiful people, but not in the sense that everyone was a supermodel. It was just that everyone was the best that they've ever looked. It's like everyone's clothes fit them perfectly, everyone's makeup fit them perfectly, everyone's haircut fit them perfectly. And so you almost had a real life Instagram picture.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it's just, it's amazing what a lot of money and a lot of fashionista and talent will get you, you know?
Well, was
So
there an underlying current of authenticity to it, or was it just out for the evening?
I felt like it lacked authenticity.
Yeah.
I felt like I really felt like I was walking in an Instagram meme or an Instagram video where everyone was just trying to really impress themselves and everyone around them. At the same time, it was nice to be there, and it was nice that everyone really like put effort in, right? Because there's
Mhm.
these dualities in life. And it's interesting. There's these nuances, right? So it's tough when you get into duality and nuance, right? Because it's not, like we were saying before, it's not so clear cut. you know
No.
when you lose someone, like we were talking before, you lose someone, whoever it might be in your life. It's like, well, what happens as life keeps going on? And listen, you're always going to have that moment. You're always going to have that person, that they're always going to be with you. And I feel that, people will say like, oh, move forward, move on. All this moving is going on, right? People are always asking about moving. And it's just when you're doing it and living it, I think it's just totally different. It's just, it's like a very vivid memory. And it's like something that's actually happening in the present. And what's strange for me, and I'm sure other people out there, and I love your opinion, there are days, and this is not an everyday thing, but there are days where I can seriously feel Deborah on this plane, or however you want to call it, on this dimensional field. And my mom only passed not even a year ago, but there has been at least 2 days where I have felt her here. And that doesn't mean that I'm a medium. That's a different story, but I'm not like such a big fan of mediums. But it's just like a feeling.
Mhm.
And the other day, this is in the last month, I felt Dev tremendously. And I wake up, and at 2 in the morning, one of her good friends that she grew up with texted me and said, I don't know why, I just got this feeling of Devorah. And what she wrote was like exactly what I was thinking. And and then in the morning, I'm on a group chat with Deb's family, and her mom, which this doesn't happen all the time, just decided to upload 20 pictures of Devorah. So it was like there was something going on in that period. I don't know what, I don't know how, I don't know what was going on, but there are things that happen like that.
I
Have you
agree.
felt like that?
I had an experience like that actually when my father died. He was in Florida. I was in Delaware waiting to get a flight out the next day. My ex-husband was up in Connecticut. I woke up at 2 in the morning out of a deep sound sleep, and I had this overwhelming feeling, this sense of love, unlike anything I've ever experienced. And then I went back to sleep. And the next day, I found out my father had died about that time, and my ex-husband in Connecticut had had the exact same experience.
Wow.
So and I kind of buried that for many years. I mean, yes, I experienced it, but I didn't make sense of it for many years. But I think that and I've had a number of interesting experiences over time. I absolutely believe that there is more than what we see here.
Of
And
course.
I absolutely believe that having a spiritual perspective on life is really important in terms of learning whatever it is we're supposed to learn. I mean, you brought up the idea of duality. I think duality is how we learn, hot, cold, light, dark. And the greater the extremes, the greater the potential for learning, but also the greater the potential for pain.
Of course. Of course. Um, it's interesting because I watch a lot of religion stuff. I like people talking about religion. I mean, my YouTube is filled with it, and I like all religions. I find them all fascinating.
Mhm.
I could go down rabbit holes with all of them. And there was a guy who's actually gotten famous. I know his first name is Wes, but I can't remember. But it's worth going down the rabbit hole with him. Um, but he was just talking about why God exists and talking about angels and demons and things like that. And these are things that we kind of laugh at in 2025, right? Like we don't want to go into that in 2025, but there's more things that we can't explain than we can. We still don't fully understand what happens when we sleep. We don't fully understand what happens when someone's in a coma. We don't fully understand consciousness. We kind of get quantum stuff, but then when you really dig deeper, there's a lot of mistakes, and we have to add things in for it to make sense and take things out for it to make sense.
And yet quantum physics, and the idea of spirituality are moving ahead together on what looks
100%.
like a collision course.
I mean, the main thing is like when you look at something, it changes, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the main. I forget the name of that test, which you probably know. But
I don't
like,
know the name offhand, but I know exactly what you're referring to. It's how an observer actually influences the course of an electron.
and like when you think of that, and then you think about what I was talking about before with you thinking and grabbing onto thoughts, it's a similar thing. And so that's why uh, we have to be careful which thoughts we hold on to.
Well, and I think part of that is I know for me, I also meditate, and
Yeah.
one of the big game changers in meditation is learning to witness your thoughts.
Yes, like clouds.
Yeah, because until you can witness your thoughts, you can't make conscious decisions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just totally reactive,
Yes.
and there's no theme, there's no
Have you read
story
Michael
to it.
Singer?
Pardon?
Have you read Michael Singer?
Oh, yes, he's wonderful.
Amazing. Okay, fantastic. Sorry, I
And
didn't want to interrupt, but I had to say that.
oh, no, have you read Gary Zukov?
No,
Okay, put him on your list, The
I
Seed of the
will.
Soul.
Perfect.
It's written a long time ago, but one of the things it influenced me along early on in that he sees the world in terms of energy flows, and that made total sense to me. And as you go deeper and deeper into that train of thought, how the energy I put out to you makes a difference in terms of how you feel, how you react, and that ripples outward. And I
Totally.
think that if we pay attention, we all have that innate energy sense that we pick up on things from people.
Oh my God. There's so much to unpack. Um, I think I think people take a lot of things too personal.
Oh, yes.
And what you just said about the energy reminded me of Abraham Hicks, which also reminded me of just taking things too personal. And a lot of times with my clients, I go over that with them. You know, like I have this client, he's a younger guy, 25, and he held the door for a woman that he told me was beautiful. And she didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. She just kept walking. And it hurt him so much that she didn't say thank you. And something like that, it's like you're basically putting your self-worth and your value and all these things on someone just because you decided to do something nice. You could have slammed the door in her face. You decided to do something nice. It's, you know, and I always say, and I always say this as a joke, but it's true. You don't know. Maybe she had bad Chinese food and had to run to the bathroom. Like,
No, you cannot be responsible for somebody else's reactions.
exactly. And a lot of people, especially here in Florida with road rage, I mean, there's more road rages here that end up in shootings than I've ever seen in my life. I didn't
Really?
even know it exists until I got here. And, but yeah, we have to be, and because that's part of spiritual, right? Because really what's happening is that he had a sense of lack. And then he used this girl to pronounce that lack. And now it's reinforced like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so now he's like, I am lack because she didn't do this thing.
Yeah, and yet you can never control another person.
Exactly. Meanwhile, with me, you know, like he asked me, and it's good. I like these questions, you know, like he asked me like, well, what would I do? And I said, you know, the truth is it depends what kind of mood I'm in, right? Like if I was in a funny mood, I might have been like, oh, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And like brought her into my reality, right? Sometimes if I was in a blah mood, I might just said nothing, you know? I don't think there's any mood that I would have said something mean, but I think that I wouldn't let it affect my whole day. That I know for sure. That I know for sure.
I have learned more and more to just step back and observe.
Yes. Yes.
You learn so much more than you do by reacting.
100%. And that's why, you know, we are the observer, you know, like we are this version of the creator. You know, God made us in his image and we have the ability to create. I mean, it's just obvious. We're creating this right now.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to music, that's a creation. You go to a car, that's a creation. I mean, we are creators. We create babies. That's a creation. And to go back to the whole energy thing, you know, if anyone doesn't even understand or believe what energy is, I mean, when's the last time you saw a microwave? When's the last time you saw a radio wave? There's so many things going on over here. This Wi-Fi thing has to be working on some kind of wave.
Absolutely.
There's so many things. I mean, the fact that this camera is picking me up is something else. And so, but we just take it for granted, you know, like there's a TV on there, there's this, there's that, light waves. So, I mean, I forget the exact percentage, but if you see, there's like some kind of a line and it shows you what humans can see.
It's very small.
Very small. So I think that that's also spirituality.
Yeah, we're very unaware of a lot of things. I mean, just as a simple example, think about how your pet, if you have a dog or a cat, perceives the world versus how you perceive it. Is their reality less than yours? I don't think it is. It's a different reality.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
David McGinley, who was on this show, a wonderful person, had a near-death experience, and he came back and he said that I always screw up this percentage, so bear with me. I think it's 0.0004% of the universe is how much we see.
Mm-hmm. I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. And so for me, what I'm trying to do for myself and what I'm trying to do for people out there and my clients and just regular people that I go on these podcasts is I want everyone to realize that life is really you versus you. Like when you die, there will be some people that will remember you. And then as time goes on, less and less people will remember you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there are some like Irish descendants that they could name their great, 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 great grandfather. I'm sure there's some other people from other countries, but I know Irish people are really good at that stuff. But for the most part, you're forgotten. And we're here right now. And it's like, no one's stopping you. Like almost no one that's listening to this right now is being kept in a cage. Almost no one that's listening to this right now has someone in their life that's saying, you can't go outside right now. And if there is, that's a terrible thing. But I would say, I'm going to say 90 to 95% of everyone listening, it's you're stopping yourself. And it's you versus you. And we have to break that. We have to break that psychology. We have to break those limiting beliefs, because this is our video game. It's because you said like the dog's reality.
Yeah.
And we're not even content with our reality. So many people are background characters of their own video game.
What do you
And
mean by that?
I mean, how many people in the world are just walking around kind of on autopilot, letting other people take charge?
Yeah. I think the majority of people are living on autopilot. And the thing I would hope or wish for people is to wake up and become more conscious, because that's where all of a sudden creativity really exists, because in consciousness you can be in the present moment, and that's
Yeah.
where you create. You don't create in the past, you don't create in the future. You can only create right now.
Yes. It's interesting. So two things. The one of the lines that I love, and I don't know if it's a quote or a line, but I just love the line, step into your power. Maybe Tony Robbins created that. Maybe he stole it from someone. I don't know. But that's like a generalized thing. But I feel like it's so powerful, because we all have so much power in us. We all have opinions. We all have things to say. But because of frame control, sometimes we don't want to say those things. And really just I'll tell you like this. I don't know. Do you know who Metallica is, the band?
Yeah,
Okay. Do you know who Taylor Swift is?
vaguely.
Okay. She's like a pop star. So imagine a pop star, she's super famous. Imagine Metallica, who's like a heavy metal band, right? Imagine you give tickets to both of these things, but they get crisscrossed. So now all the Taylor Swifties are at the Metallica show, and all the Metallica people are at the Taylor Swift show. That's how most people are living their life. They're in front of the wrong audience because they're acting not like themselves. And so they're attracting people that aren't their people. And so all those Swifties, well, most of those Swifties, let's say at least 50%, are going to say this is awful music. But
Mhm.
Metallica is one of the best bands that ever lived. And probably 90% of the Metallica audience is going to say that this is crap, but she's one of the highest recording artists that ever lived. I mean, she's got to be up there. So it's very important to find your audience. And this goes back to like kindergarten stuff. But like when you act like yourself and you are yourself, you're going to offend people. And that's a good thing. People aren't going to like you. And that's a good thing. It's like how many people go on dates and they're like, I wonder if he liked me. Well, who cares if he liked you? Did you like him? And so I think this idea of like getting your right audience is so important. And you know what? You don't need a crazy large audience. And that's one thing that I've learned, because I've done a lot of business consulting for Instagram influencers.
Oh,
And
really?
yes. And a lot of people think that are on Instagram, regular users think that you need millions of people. I was in Vegas, and I did something for a hypnotist. There was probably less than 150 people there. The guy made a crazy amount of money, over 500,000, maybe even close to 1 million. Had a great experience, a great weekend, changed people's lives. I was just in Miami. I was just at something more business oriented. Was about 500 people there. The guy made probably 1.5 million. And so what's the point of that? You don't need millions and millions of people. And in fact, when like when you look at like a reel and you're like, oh, 100 people watch this, and you're like, that's nothing. Look at I don't know, Tony Robbins. He's got 1 million people watching it. Let's
Mhm.
just okay. But now imagine 100 people in front of you. Imagine 100 people in your living room. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It's just we're like desensitized because it's Instagram, because it's online. But if you just focus on your crowd, you focus on your people in real life, in social media life, whatever it might be, you can really build a crazy, crazy community.
Absolutely. And community is, I think, more personally defined by quality rather than quantity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You listen, I know successful communities that only have 20 people in it. and I think that that's fine. And, another thing that you had said that comes up a lot, especially when it comes to losing people, right? I know for me, even before Dev passed, even for me, I think I was living a lot in the past. You were saying like living in the present, right? With
Mhm.
meditation. And I think that it's normal to be like, whether it's a business thing that went well or didn't go well, whether it's like the girl who got away, whether it's someone who passed, this like what if, what could have been, and you're either living in the past or you're living in a fake future.
Very true.
And I was like that for a little bit. I don't know how long, but I was like that for probably a year or so. And I realized that it doesn't make any sense. Someone has a quote. His name is Peter Crone. I'm absolutely in love with this guy. He has a great quote that what happened happened and couldn't have happened any other way. And it's just that's what it is. And I know in New York we use the line "it is what it is," and I know a
Mhm.
lot of people get upset with that line, but it's so true that I think it triggers people
Well,
because
no, go ahead.
no, you go.
Well, I was going to say, I think you get to define how things happen. Take an incident at a point in time, okay? You can define it as you were the victor, you were the victim. It was beneficial, it wasn't. You could see it through anger, you could see it through empathy. So, with all those different storylines simultaneously occurring, you really get to choose the one that makes the most sense to you, or weave together a story that makes the most sense to you. And that way you're not captive to a story. And we were talking about duality, you start to see the range of and the nuance of experiences that go into a given experience or a perspective that goes into a given experience. None of it is that simple, but to be stuck on one storyline that is not to your benefit, you have to take a look at that.
Oh, absolutely. With limiting beliefs or limiting stories, which is what you're talking about, you have to ask if it's serving you. And if it's no longer serving you, you got to get rid of it because you, God, universe, everything, it should be serving you. We want these things to be serving you. And listen, bad things happen, right? Bad things happen to good people. I think that's the oldest question of religion and oldest question of God since the beginning of time, right? Like, why do bad things happen to good people? You look at the story of Job, and I think that you have to reframe them like what you're saying. You have to reframe them into something as an opportunity.
Well,
And it's very important.
I look at this life as my question is, what are we supposed to learn? And I think we're presented with endless learning opportunities. And
Totally.
I think we need to be more attuned to that and think about, okay, what did I learn from that? What can I incorporate into that that makes my path a little more meaningful, a little bit better, a little more humble, perhaps?
You know, it's so what I've learned, like my wisdom that I've learned, which it's not going to be earth shattering because you've all heard this word before. But what I will say is first of all, there's layers to these stories. And so as you get older and as you change and as you experience more things, stories mean more and more things. The word that, for as far as wisdom, that comes to me and this has really hit me hard is gratitude.
Hmm.
Being grateful for the bad things is the hardest thing you have to do as a human. Everyone is grateful when they win the lottery and win $10 million. You can take an atheist, you can have them win $10 million in the lottery and they will thank God. It's just going to come out of their mouth. They're going to thank God or Jesus. It's going to come out of their mouth. They're not even going to be able to help themselves. Now, when shit hits the fan, then it becomes hard. That's when, like we were talking off camera a while ago, like victim mentality, right?
Hmm.
That's when things become harder because can you thank God? Can you be grateful when bad things happen? And a lot of people can't. And I think that when you remove gratitude, you get to that victim mentality.
I think that's a really interesting observation, and I think you're very right. I think the thing that's so hard is when you really hit a bump. Oh man, you just navigate it one step at a time, two steps forward, one step back. Nothing is clear. You don't know where you're going. It's often not until later that you can start to have enough perspective on it to say, you know, this was a terrible thing, but there were it opened up new opportunities. It changed a lot of things. You can really start to see that negative, seemingly negative pivot point actually worked to your benefit. But you have to be open to that, and you have to keep an open mind because while you're going through it, you may not be able to see it.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things that I've learned, sometimes it's hard to see like what you're saying, right? Like basically something negative leads to something better, right?
Mhm.
Now, when you're going through it, that better thing might happen 2 generations down the road. That better thing you might not actually see. There's many people that have had negative things that it just kept being negative or kept or maybe it got better. But one of the things that I've learned to be super grateful for is the experiences that I had. So I met Dev in 2015 ish, maybe the end of 2015, and she passed away in 2021. And so I love the experiences that I had with her. Right, I have a child with her, so that's a living, walking experience right now. And so I think being grateful for the experiences, and then I look at life like a Marvel movie, to say something like a multiverse, you know, and I'm in a different multiverse right now. I mean, that's just a fact, and anyone who's lost someone can relate to that. There's an old movie called Sliding Doors, I think, with Gwyneth
Yeah,
Paltrow.
yeah.
It's that kind of a feeling. And listen, there are days I wake up and I'm like, where am I? What is going on here? I mean, I'm in a different state, in a different house, with different things. Um, but you have to be grateful. You really, really have to be grateful. I think the two things for me to be grateful for is just experiences, good, bad, and different, and health, and maybe you don't have great health, but there's probably someone with worse health. And so you really have to be grateful for what you have, because then as you meet people, you see that some people are going through crazier stuff than you.
Mm. I look at some of the things people go through, and I don't know how I would ever cope. And not to compare or anything like that, but I just stop and I'm so grateful because relatively speaking, well, I've certainly had some bumps. My life is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating because I also get to experience all this through the eyes of my son. And you were talking about a pet dog. And I love dogs, so I would love to know what they're experiencing. So, and with my son, it's a crazy adventure. It's a crazy road because he's a smart kid, and he has a magic ability of not only thinking about the future, but he thinks about the future and he thinks about how people will feel in the future, which is actually not so many kids can do that.
No,
I
that's
always,
really interesting. Not so many
yeah,
people can do that.
yeah. I always tell people, I don't know if he has a high IQ, but he has a really high EQ. And I mean, I should write a book of stories that comes out of his mouth. I really should. And just within the last month, I'm walking with him. We're actually walking one of the dogs, and we're walking, and he's like, I think I figured out what God looks like. I said, okay, sounds good. What does he look like? He says, well, he has the face of Baby Yoda, but a different body. So, I mean, I thought that was hysterical. And then, we're walking, and he's like, I really miss mommy and grandma. I'm really excited to see them. And I said, I miss them too. I'm excited also, but just understand that you and I were very blessed that we're going to live many, many lives in this world. And we have to enjoy all those lives. And once we're finished enjoying all those lives and we take all the juice out of it, then we're going to be able to go and see them. But we have a long way. It's so long. So that's why we have to make every day count. That's why we have to really have all these experiences, because we're going to experience so many things. And I'm telling you, as someone who's your father, I have experienced a million things, and I'm telling you, you're going to experience a million things, and it's going to make it for that much many amazing stories when you go see mommy and grandma. And so it was a really crazy moment.
I don't know how you explain the world to a young person other than help them be as grounded in themselves as they can be, give them a good sense of right and wrong,
Yeah.
and let them run.
I do a lot of affirmations with him. You know, these are good years to do affirmations. So I'm always doing affirmations. I'm always telling him we don't care what other people think, you know, and it's one of those things that's a hard concept, right? Because kids do care what other kids think.
Yeah.
Um, but I always say, you know, you just remind yourself. You just have to remind yourself that it doesn't matter that Johnny called you a poo-poo head. It doesn't matter. You know, we don't care. You know, I always tell him, say good for you and walk away. That's my famous line to him. I'm always like, good for you, walk away, no matter what anyone says. And because you don't want to engage. I mean, it's the same conversation I have with 40-year-old business owners that are worth $10 million that are clients of mine, you know, like don't engage. Once you engage, you put weight to it, you put value to it.
And it's
And
a race to the bottom.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we were talking before this, and we were mentioning how like grief doesn't go away, right? We
Mhm.
were mentioning how you said a great line or quote or story about how it gets smaller, right?
Yeah, one of my guests actually said this. She lost her husband, and at first, your entire world is grief. It's everything, but time goes on, and slowly, the grief becomes proportionately less. It's always with you, but it becomes smaller and smaller as your world becomes bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and so I agree 100%. And for me, I think everyone's situation is different, but for me, I would add to that there are points in the experience of living, there are points where that gets bigger again. And I'm right now in real time at a point where it is getting bigger because um, next month, which is coming up fast, it's Deb's 4 years. May 13th is going to be her 4 year. The end of May is my mom's 1 year. And look, right before we jumped on this call, literally right before we jumped on this call, I got a phone call from Max's teacher. And she said, you know, I'm just letting you know, May 12th, which is like around Mother's Day, May 12th, I guess is the Monday. We're doing some Mother's Day thing at school. And so I just want to let you know, like, I don't know if you want to bring someone. I don't know if you want to come. I don't know what you want to do. She's a great teacher. I love this lady. And I said, okay. And then the next day, May 13th, Deb's family is having like a function, like a little get together for her 4 year. So it's times like this that shrinking is actually now getting a little bigger, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of moves with the way life is because now I have to think about his feelings, and you know, it's one of those things where his experience is totally different. Like he doesn't necessarily look at it as a bad thing. He doesn't necessarily look at it as a tragic thing. He looks at it. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like it's more of a factual thing for him because it happened when he was so young. But I also want to make sure that he's doing okay. What I think I'm going to do, and this is happening in real time, so I'm just having a real conversation with you. I think I'm going to not bring him to school on that Monday,
Yeah.
and because I think it's too much. Do it if it was just one or the other, I probably would be okay with it. I would probably go and do that. But I think Monday going to this school thing and having a Mother's Day thing, and then Tuesday going to this memorial event just seems like a lot for me. So I think it's a lot for him. So I think, you know what, better to take him. We're still going to celebrate Mother's Day on Sunday like everyone else. I'm not like sweeping it under the rug or anything. I just feel like it's too much to go from Mother's Day to a school event to a memorial.
It's too much for me listening to it, and I think the memorial has a sense of a little bit of magic to it, and it sounds like your son is about that age where a little bit of magic is a good thing.
Totally. Totally. He's going to be smiling, you know, he's going to be happy. And I think he's trying to figure that out, you know, because he's going to see all these people that are probably going to be crying at times, of course. And I think they're going to have like montage of videos, which we've never done before in the last couple of years. But you know, like you said, he looks at it from the magical standpoint. He looks at it from the spiritual standpoint of she's with us and she's in a happy place and she's doing great and he's excited to see her, you know. So it's a totally different viewpoint, totally different viewpoint. But the point is that you know, going back to the layers, you know, with these stories, as he's getting older, there's more information coming in, you know. And it's like, I'll just give an example, right? Like you take any story from the Old Testament. Let's take the story, we just celebrated Passover and Easter.
Mhm.
You take the story of Moses and you take him leaving and bringing everyone there and Pharaoh not wanting them to leave and all this stuff. Now, we've been hearing that story since we're kids, no matter what religion you're in. The Quran mentions Moses, I think, 100 times. So we're all listening to the same story. But now what if we take that story and we take the main characters and we have it as personalities in our head? And so Moses is now the leader of the personality. Pharaoh's that negative inner critic that's like the
Mhm.
bad guy that's telling us our bad things, right? And then we have Moses's brother who's kind of like the support system, our hype man. Like, you can do it, buddy. Like, we have all these characters going on in our head. And now you could break it into even more stuff. And so, like, as you get older, a 70-year-old man, a 40-year-old man, a 12-year-old boy, and a 5-year-old boy, that story means different things.
And the story evolves with your life experience. And I think that if you can make that jump to see the parable, all these stories are parables.
Yeah.
And if you can start to understand the meaning and the nuance under these stories, that's where spirituality comes in my opinion.
Yes, 100%. And I think, you know, I don't know what happened in the world where I think about how these stories were written so long ago and not too much has changed psychologically.
Oh, no,
You
man never
know?
changes.
Yeah, we're not changing.
No,
And
we don't for better or for worse, we simply
absolutely.
do not change, and that's what I wish there were a way to really, impart knowledge, from generation to generation, but it's very hard. The only way I can see some knowledge being transmitted is through story, because story emotionally hits you. And that's experiential. And
Right.
experiential things are what change you or influence you, not just knowledge. It has to be experience. So that's why I think stories can be powerful, but it has to take another jump. It isn't that you just repeat the story, it's that you understand the story. And
Yeah.
then you apply it, going back to what you said earlier, in terms of putting the energy and movement into your life, you have to apply it.
Yeah, integration is key. Integration is key. And I feel that there's something in us as humans that we want to learn from firsthand experience. And, you know, we could use the analogy of touching a hot stove.
Mhm.
And you can say a million times to a kid, if you touch it, you're going to get burnt. But there's something that the kid still needs to touch it and get burnt. And that's just true. And I don't know. I agree with you. Story can be very impactful. And I think that's the point of a lot of these religious texts, is to create these very powerful stories. And something that I'm trying to constantly wrap my head around is like, just like how you touch a stove. Now, once you get burnt, you will do whatever you can from that point forward not to get burnt, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's almost like an immediate rewiring of the brain.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you do the reverse, where something so good happens that it completely rewires your brain? Because that part, it's not so instant.
Oh, I don't know. You really I think something good can be instant.
Oh, I
Do you
definitely think it can be,
lasting?
but I think it's harder to rewire.
I think it is harder to rewire. I agree. Jill Bolter Taylor has an interesting book, Whole Brain Living.
Okay,
She was on the show. She was the Harvard researcher, brain researcher who had the stroke and
okay,
wrote My Stroke of Insight. She says that there's a piece of our brain that accumulates all of our past experience. and it does it to keep us safe. But the problem is it's all mostly negative. So that's the part of our brain that whenever anything comes up, it's like, you can't do this. There's danger in this. Don't do that. Be safe. And you have to balance that out with the other pieces of your brain that in order to have, as she says, whole brain living. And I think that's a really important point, that that part of our brain is very past oriented. And
Yeah.
we have to look at that and weigh what it says, because while its intentions are good, the outcomes may not be so good. The outcomes may be very limiting.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I think that as long as you're self-reflecting, meditating, writing things down, and just putting an effort to really get to the next levels of yourself, you're on the right track.